mind, Treasury don't make any sense. We have to understand that. And we have to understand that from different angles. As we deal with the members of the church, we need to realize if they are not being faithful stewards, the first question that we need to answer is, are they really under God's guidance? Do they really have a relationship with God? And if they do, then we need to teach them, because maybe they don't understand the principle of stewardship. And as we will be dealing today, I don't know how many treasurers or stewardship directors are here right now, but it's important to know how Treasury works. It's very important. So the first thing that I want to show to you is that the treasurer is the custodian of all the church funds. We need to understand that. He is the person responsible for all church funds that are received in the treasury of the church. And these funds, we can classify them probably in two groups. I'm classifying them here in three groups because I want to emphasize certain things that are important for the church. The first group is the money that is received and goes to the conference and higher organizations in the structure of the church. The second group is the money that belongs to the church, the local church. The third group is the money that belongs to the church but is assigned to auxiliary departments in the church. And I want to make that distinction so that we understood clear, how we should handle the treasury of the church. For example, let's go to the conference and higher organization funds. Basically, I'm giving you some examples here of the funds that we handle through the conference and through the higher organizations. We have tithe, we have Sabbath school offerings, the missionaries Sabbath school offering, we got world budget offering, we got New Jersey Advance, we got evangelism, we could have education, ADRA, many others. But these funds, when they are given, they belong to the conference and to the higher organization. And you will see later in the presentation that these funds are used for specific purposes. The church fund. I have only three here. You may wonder, how come? Well, basically, these are the three major categories that we have for our church. Combined budget, building fund, and community service. These are the basic three major categories that the church uses. Combined budget for the expenses that are having in the church and in the auxiliary departments. Building fund, because many churches has projects. It could be building funds, it could be any other project in the church. Community service, because we serve the community, and we can have community service, like some people say, welfare, local welfare, and community welfare, sometimes they call it, to separate, the money they use for the people inside the church and money they use to help people in the community. But both can be classified in this kind of category, community services. The third one that as I mentioned to you, all these funds belong to the church. but they have been assigned to a specific department in the church. They have been separated for a specific use, or the donator, the person that is donating the money, is giving it for a specific function in the church or department, like Sabbath school, youth, Adventist youth, Pathfinder, adventurers, community service, could be also in the local level too, personal ministry, woman ministry, education, and many others that we have in the church sometimes. But when we have departments in the church, there are a few things that we need to understand. Once money is received for a specific purpose, no one in the church have authority to change it. If I give $10 to buy a chair in a church, that $10 need to be used for a chair in a church. Because it's illegal here in the United States that you request money and receive money donated for a specific purpose to use it for something else. It's illegal. And we need to understand that. Not only because it's illegal, but basically because it's a principle that we have. If we have designated that offering or that money have been designated for a specific use, no one else except the person that is giving the money has authority to change it. Nobody else. And we need to understand that. Why I'm emphasizing that today? Because my brothers and sisters, they have been a very sad tendency in the church that sometimes we tend to rationalize how we handle the money in the church. Let me tell you, this quote from Church Manual, page 60. It is the utmost important that all offerings and gifts contributed by individuals to the church for specific funds be used for that purpose. Neither the church treasurer nor the church board has the authority to divert any funds from the objective for which they were given. No one has that authority. The funds to auxiliary departments are considerable portion of which often represent donations given for a specific purpose, are raised for that special part of the church work for which the auxiliary department is established. Such funds are held in trust by the church treasurer, and they too may not be borrowed or in any way diverted by the treasurer or the church board from the objectives for which they were given. My brothers and sisters, we have to be careful. Sometimes in church board, we feel like we can move or dispose of the money in whichever way we want. And we have to be careful. When money has been donated for a specific purpose, we need to honor the wish of the donor. We need to do it. It's very important that we understand that. I'm not asking you to go to the church now and begin to fight with the pastor, with the board, with the member of the church. I want to make it clear. These are the principles that should be guiding what we do in the church.
Amen.
But we need to understand that the church has been practicing things that sometimes don't fall into this category. And what we have been practicing, probably in my church, is not meeting the standard. But I'm not asking you go now and begin to fight with the members of the board because things are being done wrong, or we are not doing the right thing. We need to go and teach.
Amen.
Did you hear that? We need to go and teach. Begin to teach people what are the principles that we should follow as a church. And let's help them understand why we do it in that way. What are the principles that are guiding the policies of the church? Why we do it in that way? Because it's important. Unless people understand, they will never do that because they are not understanding. And if they don't understand it, they won't do it right. So we need to teach. We don't need to fight. You know, if we go to the church and begin to present these principles, and people are still not understanding, and the majority of them are still not understanding, don't get discouraged. Keep teaching. Keep helping the church to understand the right principles. By the way, for the ones that are probably concerned, this presentation will be available for you. It will be given to the stewardship department, and you will have it to be able to teach the church this principle. So you will have it. Look what the church said about the tithe. The tithe is to be held sacred for work of the ministry, for Bible teaching, there is a mistake there, and for the support of conference administration in outreach endeavor. You know, these are the three main areas where the tithe is used. Look to a quote that Ellen G. White said to some people at some point. A very plain, definite message has been given to me for our people. I am bidden to tell them that they are making a mistake in applying the tithe to various objects which, though good in themselves, are not the object to which the Lord has said that the tithe should be applied. Those who make this use for the tithe are departing from God, from the Lord's arrangement. Not everything is here, but she said, God will be the judge one day. We could be, using our tithe not for the purpose that God has intended it. And my brothers and sisters, I have been seeing that tendency in the church lately. Many people, they believe they know better than God. And they decide the tithe, they can put it in whatever they want. We need to teach people that is not right. God has intended the tithe to be used for specific purposes. And when we decide to use it for something different, we are not tithing. That money is not tied to the Lord. That money is an offering, it's a donation, but it's not tied. When I decide, I'm going to take half of my tithe and I'm going to put it in building fund because we need to build or buy a church, be careful. You are playing with your own souls. And we are playing with our salvation when we do that. So we have to be careful. We need to teach our people. We need to teach them, their future is shaky when we allow the church to rationalize and do whatever they want. And we that are having the light have the responsibility of calling people and teaching them. If something is not being done right, let's teach them. Let's preach to them. Let's call them. Let's analyze what we are doing and make sure that we are following God's principle. It's very important, because if we don't do it, many people are going to be losing their soul, because they have been stealing God, the resources that God has intended for a specific purpose. And they have been stealing from God. They need to understand. I'm not saying they are stealing. God themselves said, my people are stealing me from tithe and offerings. And I see that in many churches. I see people from all the churches. I can see that there is a tendency in the church to think, sometimes because they don't agree with some policies in the church, sometimes because they don't agree the way the conference handle some decisions in the church, they believe they can best determine how tithe and offerings are going to be used. But my brothers and sisters, sometimes we take the place of God. And we make decisions that God has said something different. And we say, no, we are better than God. We can decide where the church needed more. God doesn't know. And we are getting confused. No one knows better the church than God. No one knows better our own situation than God. And we need to be careful. We need to be careful, because we have specific instructions about that. I'm going to present to you in this section now what is the experience of the conference. This is the tithe that the conference has received for the last 7 years. The last 7 years, we have grown from 10 million to 11 million to 233. That was this year that just ended, 2013. That's the total amount of tithe that we have received. And let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, I know it could be more. Amen. Because there are many people in the church that do not understand stewardship and that are not being faithful to God. There are many people in the church. But we cannot force them. And God will not force them neither. The only thing we can do is teach them. Help them understand that this is a very important part of their relationship with God. If God is the owner of everything, and He is asking only for a 10% and a free will offering, why we need to decide how we do it? He's very specific. He's giving us free will on the thank offering that we give to Him. But He's very specific, saying the tithe is 10%. Some people believe that if they give 50% of the 10%, 5%, they are okay. But it's not. We need to teach our people. We cannot play with God. He knows the truth. He knows the reality of our life. Because sometimes, we fool ourselves when we play with a specific instruction that God has given to the church. And we have that responsibility. As treasurers, as stewardship director, as elders, as pastors, we have that responsibility. People need to understand. For the last 4 years, we have been in 11 million, if you can see there. 2010, 2013, we have been right there in 11 million. I know the church can have more money than that. But, God does not need our money to finish the work. It's not money. Sometimes we think that He needs money, but He doesn't need money. He has thousands and thousands of angels willing to preach and do our work if He asks for. But He has chosen to do it in a different way. He has chosen to allow us to be part of that ministry, of the gospel preaching. He didn't do it because He needs our money. He is doing it because we need to understand the benefit that we get from giving God what belongs to Him. Amen. By recognizing Him as the owner of everything. And we are the ones that are being benefited by this plan. Not God. But people need to understand it. And I emphasize again, we need to teach people. Teaching is the key so that people understand that they have enough knowledge to make a wise decision. Another section that we have in Treasury that usually you don't see. How is the money that we receive in tithe distributed at the conference? You can see there, 16% of the tithe money that we receive at the conference goes to the general conference and goes to support all the projects and activities that the general conference do through the world. So your money is helping the world, the whole world, when you give your tithe. 16% goes there. 9% goes to the Columbia Union Conference. You know that the conference, New Jersey Conference, belongs to the Columbia Union. There are probably 6 or 7 conferences tied to that union. And 9% of the tithe that we receive is sent to that organization for their promotion through all the conference. 10.6% is sent to the General Conference and the NAD for retirement of the workers in the church. The retirement plan that we have, that is separated for that. 3.5% is given to the Washington Adventist University. 3.5. And 0.85% is given to a small conference. We have in our structure of the church conferences that are smaller. They don't have enough support, financial support in their membership. So the bigger conference help them. Once we reach a certain level of offering, we begin to contribute to these small conferences. Everything that is here is around 40% of the total tithe. 40% of the total tithe that is received in the church, in our conference, go to support higher organizations' activities. The other 60% is distributed between church program, you can see there, 34.68% is used in the church activity. What do we call church program? Stewardship, youth, education. No, education I have it separate here. We have personal ministry, women ministry, prison ministries. We have men ministry, single ministry. All these kind of activities, ADRA, all these kind of activities, community service, are handled through that church program activity. And we spend 34 cents of a dollar on that activity. That's what it's saying there. 34 cents of every dollar that we receive from tithe is distributed in that way. 17, almost 18% is given to the education department to support the schools. That's without considering that we give to the universities, like Washington University, we give 3.5. We also give 17, almost 18% of our tithe is used to support the teachers and Bible teaching in our conferences. 7.41% is used in the administration of the church. Administration of the church, we call the operation of the conference office. Use 7.41. So 7 cents of every dollar that you give in tithe is expended in that area. I'm just giving this information to you so you can get an idea, how the money that you are giving is being used, and that you can have that information also to teach the members of the church, how the money of the church is being used. Yeah, I will give time for questions later. But let's just go quickly so that we can cover, and then I'll give you the opportunity for a question. The next one that we have here is the world budget offering. You know that in the tithe offering you have a section that is called world budget. When you put offering there, this is the distribution that is used to give this money to the different organizations. Some of them belong to the General Conference, and some of them belong to the North American Division. They use it for a specific project, for a specific activities. Whatever you put there in the world budget offering, it will go to this area. Doesn't mean also that some of these offering, like Sabbath school offering, they get offering from the Sabbath school too. But this is the distribution only of the money that you put in the world budget offering. There is a section there that said that. That's the way it's being distributed. New Jersey Advance. You know that we have a section in the local conference side that said New Jersey Advance. That's the way we distribute New Jersey Conference Advance offering received from the churches. It's distributed in 3 categories. For evangelism, we spend 34%. Of every dollar, $34, 34 cents of a dollar is used for evangelism, to support the evangelism at the local church level. 33% is used for worthy students in our academies. And 33% is used for building fund. You know that when a church buys a property, we, by policy, give them 10% of whatever the cost of that building it is. That 10% comes from this offering. Nothing that is given through New Jersey Advance is used for anything else except these projects. We cannot divert it, we cannot change it. It's defined in that way. The executive committee of the conference decide what percentages are going to be used, and that's what we use. For example, for next year, this year, 2014, is going to be divided. 50% will go to building fund. Why? Because there are many church growings and there are many people looking for building to buy so they can have their church. And the need in that area is higher than ever before. So 50% have been already agreed to be assigned to building fund. And 25% will be given to evangelism and worthy student. That's the way it's going to be. When we receive that money in the conference, automatically it's divided in these areas for that use, and no other use can be given to that money at all. There is another section here that I want to emphasize to you, and you can see this in the internet page. If you go to www personal giving plan, you will find this. But I'm using this just to give you an idea, how the local offering, the loose offering in the church is being used. Sometimes I wonder if people understand that the way the church has designed the systematic giving in the church to be a blessing, that offering can be distributed to many areas in the church in a balanced way. And the loose offering, we're talking now about the loose offering in the church that you collect every Sabbath. That loose offering, the first Sabbath and the third Sabbath, are supposed to be for local church expenses. Only these 2 Sabbaths. I know sometimes we get a little bit greedy and we want all the 5. But
plenty greedy.
It's just that sometimes we don't understand the reasons. This system of loose offering, the church have been trying to design it in a way that it can be helping all the areas of the church too. And that's why it's assigned in that way. 2 Sabbaths belong to the local church. 1 Sabbath belongs to the world budget, the second Sabbath every month, the second Sabbath every month. Any loose offering received there belongs to the world church budget. The 4th Sabbath, that offering belongs to the New Jersey Advance. That is used in the way I just showed you. 50% will be used for building fund. 25 and 25 will be for evangelism and worthy student in the education area. And my brothers and sisters, if we would be having a systematic giving to the church, that offering that today is around maybe 120 to 150 could be close to $1 million. If we would be faithful to God. But it's not there. Many churches don't think they should give anything at all. But when they buy a property, they want the 10%. They don't forget that. And sometimes we wonder, where the money is coming. It's coming from our own effort together to reach. Sometimes we have a 5th Sabbath in a month, And when that is happening, that fifth Sabbath is designated for a local or union conference offering. That happens 4 times in a year, usually. But it's happened in that way because the church has tried to balance, what is received in the church to be distributed evenly to all the areas of the church. If you can see, 2 are for local church, 1 for world church, 1 for the conference area, and if another come, we'll go to the union, the 5th one. Why I'm telling you this, my brothers and sisters? The church need to understand that giving to God can be simple. Pastor Pottinger is going to be presenting to you later the importance of giving to the church. Plan. When you are planning to do it in a systematic way, you can be of help for the church. You can be of help for the church if you do it wisely. You see, we are being given here the opportunity, and you see there are 3 major categories here. Because these are the 3 major categories that the church is trying to help through the offerings of every member in the church. The local church, the conference, and the world budget. If we learn how to do our offering, for me, I don't think that the church as a member, I should be giving everything to local church budget, what we call combined budget. Because if we get to that place, the money can be distributed to all the departments in the church. Church expenses, youth, because when you're giving in the combined budget, you are giving to the church saying, this is the money that I have decided that is going to belong to God. I'm giving it because I'm thankful to God because of the blessing that I have been receiving from Him.
Amen.
And I want to put it in the hands of the church board so that they can decide where is more needed. Sometimes we think, well, I want to give offering just to the youth because these are in really big need, and you see the offering in the youth department growing and growing, and nothing is happening. Nothing is being used. And it's piling there, and nothing is being used. We have to be wise and make sure that we are giving so that the church can distribute the need for whatever need the church has. And remember, every church has different needs.
Amen.
Completely different. So, by just giving to specific areas, we are limiting what the church can do. And we need to teach our people that they need to be wise. They need to know how to give offering. I'm sorry. Give offering to God. Because it's really important. It's really important. I know you have a question, sister.
I just wondered if we had access to some of these PowerPoints.
I will
that
give,
we can share with
yeah.
our churches.
Yeah, I will give this complete PowerPoint presentation to the stewardship department so they can send it to every church.
Okay.
So that you will be able to use it, to present it to the church, and help you to teach the people. Remember, I'm emphasizing today, I don't want the treasurer to go or the stewardship director to begin a fight in a church. That won't help the church. If you begin to fight, if you begin to have conflict with people because you know now better and you wanted to implement it, be patient, teach, help people understand. Because if I give something to God because you tell me and I don't understand, it doesn't mean anything. You know, giving to God is an act of worship. We are giving God because of what He is for us, what He has given to us. And we cannot put any price on salvation. There is nothing that can pay for salvation. Even if we try, we'll never make it. And it's given to us free. But we need to understand the relationship. And we need to understand why the church do things in certain ways. And what is the best way to do it. You can go and you can put your budget allocation. You know, if every money that we put in this offering, combined budget, can be distributed by the local church board to the different departments of the church. The example that you have here is my church. That's how we distribute. We are a small company, so that's the way we do it. 3% goes to community welfare, the local one, and 3% goes to community welfare to the outside one too. Lake Nelson School, for education, we separate 10% of the money that is received through work budget, combined budget, church expense 60%, and building fund 24%. You know, this is the way that the church should be giving. We shouldn't be having to do too many promotions in the church for many things. We should have the majority percent in there. And if there are departments that are functioning and they are needing money, they will assign percentages too. And you know, it's important to do it in percentages. You know why? Because in that way, doesn't matter how much money is received, the money is being distributed equally to the need that the church understands is there for the church. So it's important that we understand that. Yeah, Mr. Hahn?
Back there where you showed the tithe money for the conference, or I mean the conference budget.
Yeah.
Tithe money, where does I didn't see the pastor's salary in any one of
The
those.
pastor's salary is in the church program,
Right,
included in the church program. The 34% that was there is included in there. For the pastors that are in the field are there. The pastors that are working at the conference are in the 7.41% that we have there. They are separated because the ones that are working for the administration and the conference, that section is separated, and the other one, the pastors that are in the field, are included in the church program side. Yeah? I know.
In the beginning of the presentation, you talked about how it's wrong to use money that was for a certain purpose. What about church expenses? It's such a broad department or broad area. Is it also wrong to use that money and transfer out to different departments because the departments no longer have money?
Well, you see, church expenses is not a major problem because church expenses shouldn't be there. Church expenses should be combined budget. But sometimes people give it for church expenses, and when it's given in that way, you know, it's being limited because it's saying the church should use it for his expenses. What is church expenses? Light, water, gas, electricity, all these kind of things. And if you're putting too much money there and then the department doesn't have, the church can say, okay, I can give it because that belongs to the board to do it. But the ideal thing will be to put it in combined budget and let the church in a board decide what percentages are going to be used, and then bring it to a business meeting and everybody agree, okay, we are going to distribute all the money that is received in the church in this way. In that way, it's more balanced. And it can be modified as the experiences are happening in the church, allow you if the next year, if you see this year we spend money in this area and we didn't assign enough percentages to cover it, then next year we can change the percentages and cover the church expenses as they are happening. Because they don't happen in the same way every time, and they don't happen in the same way in every church. Every church has different needs. So that's why it's important. But, your question of using church expenses to cover some of the department expenses is okay. But you see what is not okay? Using department expenses to cover church expenses. Because once the money is designated for youth activities, it's not right to bring that money and use it for church expenses. Because the money has been given. And this is the principle, why it's important that we do it in a very wisely manner. Because when people donate to youth activities, Adventist Youth or Pathfinder, that money should be used only for that activity. Because the donor is saying, I want it to be spent in that way. That's why we need to teach our people. If some people have affinity with some departments, they like it better, and they put their offering there. But we need to teach them that when they are doing that, they are limiting the church, and they are not helping the church in all the areas. We need to teach them. Yeah?
I have a question, what you just said before. What happens if a department no longer exists, like a choir, and we have $2,000 in choir, and we don't have a choir anymore, and we need it for something else, then what happens? Or there's a memorial fund for someone, and the money is just there for years. So now what?
For that specific department, and he's still a member of the church, and you use it for something else, then you are risking to have trouble with that member. Because he could say, well, I give $2,000 and it's there, and I want it to be used for the music department. So no one has that authority. That's why it's important to try to go back to the donor. If you can identify the donors that give that money, and you can help them understand that there is another need and they're willing to give it away to the other need, that's the best way to handle it.
Right.
And the correct way to do it. If there is nobody around and there is no way to search and find, where the money comes from, well, we'll give the authority to the church board and a church in business meeting. Don't forget, that money doesn't belong to the church board. That money belongs to the church. So a business meeting should be handled so that everybody knows what is being done with that money in case it's being used for something different, because there is no longer that program. It's very important to do it, that you make sure you have all the church in your back of what you're doing. Because if you have too many people that don't agree with that, then you're going to raise questions in the church. And when people begin to question whether you are doing the right thing, they don't trust the church anymore. And this trust in the church is one of the biggest problems that we have in the church. And that's why people give money to different things, because they don't trust the church handling things. But we need to understand, like Pastor Pottinger said, we are giving money to God for what He has given to us. And if the general that we give it, the better, because in that way the church can handle the needs that they have in a better way. If we are too specific in what we're giving, we are limiting the church, and we create this kind of problem. That then we find sometimes a department with a lot of money that is not being used for anything. And the church is lacking money in other areas and cannot use it. And it's having expenses that cannot cover. And it cannot use it. So it's important. It's important that we be careful how we do it. But the best way, my brothers and sisters, is teaching and helping people understand the need of the church. How you make people understand the need of the church? Showing them, like I show you, how the money is being spent in the church. You know, the way I show you how the money is spent in the conference, the treasurer should go to the church and do the same. Show them this is how every dollar that is received here is being spent, so people can understand the need of the church. So God bless you. And